The flower communion in our faith tradition emerges from a grassroots practice which began in 1940 with the Reverend Maria Čapek. She introduced this service to the First Unitarian Church of Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I wonder that one introduction, albeit to the mighty Cambridge congregation, that it spread all over the country, and we've stuck with it all these years. Why is it that we have endured for so long and so widely? Well, it might have something to do with the fact that it comes from a good story, a sad yet heroic one. And it might be that the flower communion stands as a universal liturgy, a rite of spring, a rite of nature itself. And it might be that the divine immanence in all life is revealed when nature's beauty touches the human soul. While it was Reverend Dr. Norbert Čapek's wife who introduced the flower communion in the United States, Norbert was the creator. Čapek was born in the Austro-Hungarian region of Bohemia in 1870. He was raised Catholic, and he was preparing for the priesthood when he had a crisis of faith that led him to the Baptist ministry instead. His ministry in Moravia thrived, and by the first decade of the 1900s, young Čapek was established as a Baptist leader, published in religious journals. He became well educated and was duly influenced by, some of you social workers may recognize this name, Walter Rauschenbusch, and his social gospel. A university professor who knew Čapek and knew his ministry told Čapek that you're a Unitarian. Well, Čapek didn't argue, and he reached out to the American Unitarian Association asking for support and didn't get an answer. In the meantime, Čapek's writing grew in anti-Catholic sentiment, and by extension, the Austrian government. And by 1914, Čapek decided living abroad was well advised. So he headed to New York City with his wife and 8 children. In the meantime, Marie Octavek, born in Bohemia in 1888, emigrated to New York in 1907 to study at Columbia. She landed a librarian's position in the New York Public Library system, and Čapek, who lost his wife died right after he came into the country. He met Maria in the library, and it was love at first sight. And him, 18 years older than her, with 8 children in tow. He must have been a really charming guy. But altogether, they settled in a New Jersey suburb where Čapek served a small Baptist congregation. But it was also there that he ran aground with the Baptist Union, which maybe was a little bit different from what he experienced in Europe. He was tried twice for heresy and acquitted by a tribunal. We don't know anybody like that, do we? Different denomination. I'm sorry, that's an inside joke. I'll tell you about it after the service. So At that point, in 1919, Čapek said, "I give up," and he left the ministry and became a psychologist. Meanwhile, the Čapeks encouraged their school-aged children to attend Sunday school at various churches in their neighborhood of East Orange. And one that the children liked in particular was the Unitarian church. And they tried cajoling their parents into coming to the Unitarian church, but Norbert didn't want to have anything to do with it. But one Sunday, when his children were talking about what they learned in Sunday school, something piqued his interest, and they wound up, Maria and Norbert went to the Unitarian Church in East Orange, where they found a congregation not only with clear heads, but warm hearts too. He and Maria signed the membership book in January of 1921, but there was really no intention of them staying put. In fact, East Orange was only a staging ground for the next phase of the Čapek's life. World War I had ended in 1918, and Czechoslovakia had become an independent state. And newly minted Czech citizens were leaving the Catholic Church in droves. Čapek felt a pull to be among the people of his homeland in their spiritual awakening. Knowing of his desire to return to Czechoslovakia, the minister at the East Orange Church arranged a face-to-face meeting with the president of the American Unitarian Association, and by May, Čapek had a commitment from the AUA to support his work in Czechoslovakia. The Čapeks bid farewell to Orange, New Jersey, and embarked for Europe on June 30th, 1921. Well, just 1 year later, Dr. Norbert Čapek had established the Prague Congregation of Liberal Religious Fellowship, and it was already standing room only. On Tuesday nights, Dr. Čapek's sermon was reread and debated. Imagine that, your sermon debated. Dr. Čapek developed a Sunday school curriculum aimed at developing hopeful, confident children. And apparently it was so well done that the Prague public schools came to use the curriculum as well. To celebrate their first year as the Prague congregation, Dr. Čapek led the first flower celebration, as it is said to be better translated. The date was June 24th, 1923. Maria was ordained in the church in 1926, and by the 1930s, it is believed that Čapek led the world's largest Unitarian congregation of several thousand people. And the church was officially recognized by the Czech government as a Unitarian congregation. Now, what was it that the Czech people were so hungry for in the religion that Dr. Čapek gave them? Well, first, Čapek gave them hope, not hell. And in his book, published in 1929, the title translates to Toward a Sunnier Shore, Čapek assured readers of their own ability within themselves to own their moods and direct their own feelings. Rather than subscribe to any systematic theology, Čapek thought that religion should bring inner harmony, which is the precondition of strong character, good health, joyful moods, and a victorious, creative life. And in this, Čapek has been compared to Viktor Frankl and his logotherapy, which just means we're happiest when we find meaning in our lives. We're happiest when our lives have meaning. Secondly, Čapek gave them freedom, not doctrine. He felt the church's task was, quote, to place truth above any tradition, spirit above any scripture, freedom above authority, and progress above all reaction. Now, Čapek was decidedly non-traditional and heretical when it came to religious authority that held sway over reason and conscience. And this is probably why he couldn't stand with the Baptist Union in New York, for he couldn't tolerate what he called the enemies of the Spirit. And the enemies of the Spirit he named as ignorance and superstition. Those who have studied Čapek say though cradled in Catholicism, he had a liberator's blood. Now, you almost have to be a seminarian to understand this one, but I'm going to say it anyway. His biographers say that running in his veins was an ancestor who once followed Jan Hus. Now, Jan Hus is at the very beginning, like a precursor. His theology was a precursor in the 14th century to the Protestant Reformation. He had an influence over people like Martin Luther. And so here Čapek has this ancestor who is a general who rides for liberation and freedom, religious freedom. So that even though he was born in a very, very traditional setting, he was bound, or he was not going to be bound by it. Third, Čapek gave his Czech people, character, not catechism. His philosophy on religious education was concerned with developing in children an ability to have faith and confidence, to have hope, a feeling of awe, a sense of charity or selfless love, and conscientiousness. Now, this is very interesting because almost side by side or concurrently was Sophia Lyons-Vaz in our American Unitarian movement, who completely revolutionized religious education. And instead of opening the lid and pouring stuff in, which is catechetical, there was an aim to try and have children actually have experiences of awe and hope and those attributes which develop into a free conscience and one that is open to love and to generosity. So finally, Čapek gave them also a God that was not a far-off, punishing guy in the sky, but a God that was manifest in every living thing in creation. Čapek said that the hidden cry for harmony with the infinite is in every soul. Every soul cries out to be in harmony with the eternal and the infinite. And even in his consecration of the flowers, which I'll read in just a bit, he describes the flowers as divine messengers of love and fellowship, calling people to be one in desire and affection, devotion, and to the holy will of God. In 1939, Čapek republished his book, Toward a Sunnier Shore, with the thought that once again the people of his homeland had found themselves suffering under Nazi Germany that took control of Moravia and Bohemia. Maria returned to the United States that year. Her intention was to lecture and raise funds to assist with refugees in Europe who were at risk. She would never see her husband again. Norbert continued, undaunted in the face of occupation, the Prague Unitarian Church services. The president of the AUA offered to bring Norbert and his at-risk children out of the country, but they all refused to leave. And in 1941, Norbert and his youngest daughter were arrested for listening to foreign radio broadcasts. His daughter served 18 months and was released. Norbert, however, even before standing trial, was sent to Dachau by order of a Gestapo officer. While the success of the Prague Church might have been an indication that Čapek was doing a few things right, his biographers think that he had no finer hours than those spent lifting the hearts and souls of his fellow prisoners in the Priester block of Dachau. In fact, somewhat ironically, a surviving Catholic priest gave witness to Čapek's inspiration, saying that he achieved his greatest ministry in Dachau among the despairing who lived in the very shadow of death. Without him, the priest said, we could not have endured. Dr. Norbert Fabian Čapek died sometime in the fall of 1942. His death certificate indicated that he died of a brain hemorrhage, but it was most likely the result of being exposed to a lethal dose of poison gas. The Reverend Maria Čapek was not able to return to Prague, of course, once Germany invaded. She remained in the United States, serving a Unitarian congregation in New Bedford, Massachusetts, one that prospered under her leadership. She left the congregation to serve with the United Nations Relief Rehabilitation Agency, and then later for another relief agency, providing aid to people in particular of her homeland. She died December 2nd, 1966. So for what did Norbert Čapek give his life? Well, we have this wonderful legacy of his, the flower communion, but it is just representative of his life devoted to humanity and his love for humanity, his theology of this creative, loving God in everything. And he gave his life for freedom of conscience and the right to choose a religion. And he gave his life for a questioning religion, one that would later mark religion as liberal in the United States, a religion grounded in democracy that examines itself. Today, let the beauty of these flowers be symbolic of the beauty and diversity of life and how each individual is unique and whole and unto themselves, just as the gathering or the bouquets of flowers are here. Czech Unitarians today consider the flower a most beloved symbol. Flowers come in such variety, and as I said, in bouquets, they are beautiful and colorful and diverse and unique. And when people come together on Sunday morning, it's just as beautiful a thing. And when people come away from the ritual with a single flower, the Czech Unitarians say that we accept one another in that embodiment. We accept one another in the congregation, and we care for one another. So let us, this day, with the consecration of the flowers, which I will read momentarily, I invite you to come and take a single stem. It may be multiple flowers on one stem, but to take one stem away, preferably something that you didn't bring yourself. The words of Norbert Čapek. Infinite Spirit of life, we ask thy blessing on these, thy messengers of fellowship and love. May they remind us, amid diversities of knowledge and of gifts, to be one in desire and affection and devotion to thy holy will. May they also remind us of the value of comradeship, of doing and sharing alike. May we cherish friendship as one of thy most precious gifts. May we not let awareness of another's talents discourage us or sully our relationship, but may we realize that whatever we can do, great or small, the efforts of all of us are needed to do thy work in this world. So with that consecration and with Marina's beautiful playing of De Colores, let us proceed to the table and take a flower from the vase.
Mums smell bitter. I didn't. You can hand me something. Anything.
This is beautiful. I don't think of Florida, South Florida, as being a place that you can pick flowers and bring them into the congregation, but this is just lovely. Thank you, whoever brought them.